Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at some well-known villains of TV and film and determining just why they seem to be so good at putting together outfits to die for. As you've probably guessed, here at the Gentleman's Gazette, we're big fans of film and TV. Watching a dramatic plot unfold while also enjoying the talents of the costume designers is a great way for us to spend a few hours. So much so that we've put together a playlist reacting to various TV shows and movies, and you can take a look at that one here. Of course, one fairly consistent component of almost any story is an antagonist or villain for our hero to go up against, and as you've probably noticed before, these villains tend to be pretty well dressed. As such, we've rounded up some of our favorite miscreants in today's video to figure out just why being bad can look so good. Jumping right in then, first on our list today is the Joker, specifically Jack Nicholson's interpretation from the 1989 film Batman. As I'm sure you'll agree, we really couldn't have done this list without the Joker, so we figured it only made sense to start with the Clown Prince of Crime. Since his comic book debut in 1940, the Joker has almost always been depicted as a well-dressed foil for the Dark Knight, with the exception of one or two instances.
Are you sweet-talking me?
That being said, there is a definite blueprint for what the character usually wears, and though the colors may change slightly between interpretations, you're most typically going to see the Joker in a fairly standard 2- or 3-piece suit-like configuration. Even Jared Leto's turn as the character saw him don formal wear in a nod to paintings done by noted comic and graphic novel artist Alex Ross, whose works in turn were inspired by the menswear illustrations of J.C. Leyendecker. In other words, there are many layers of menswear going on here. But as lovers of classic style, we have to hold up Jack Nicholson's portrayal as being the sartorial standard for the character in film and TV. Throughout the course of the 1989 film, we're treated to a ton of outfits that are packed with classic menswear details, including hats, double-breasted suits, tailcoats, high-rise pleated trousers, morning waistcoats, Balmoral boots, suede gloves, boutonnieres, and the list just goes on. The cherry on top here is that though Bob Ringwood served as the costume designer for the majority of the film, Nicholson had most of his outfits tailored on Savile Row by the famous tailor Tommy Nutter. A fitting name for the Joker's tailor. Just kidding there.
I like him already.
And although some of the details and color choices are obviously quite cartoonish for everyday wear, there's no denying that many of the Joker's choices here are still rooted in classic menswear, which leaves a smile on our faces for all the right reasons. Next on our list is someone with refined tastes in every element of his life, Hannibal Lecter, specifically Mads Mikkelsen's portrayal on the NBC television series. Without a doubt, Anthony Hopkins gave a truly iconic performance as Hannibal Lecter in the Silence of the Lambs film, but he tends to spend most of his time on screen in a less than attractive prison-issue jumpsuit. Therefore, our favorite take on Hannibal the Cannibal is the one that Mads Mikkelsen gave in the NBC TV show. And as the series develops over its criminally short 3-season run, we do see an evolution in Lecter's style. Later episodes of the series set in Florence show him leaning more into the Italian style of dressing, with a particular highlight being a tan double-breasted suit worn without a tie for a touch of sprezzatura. However, the majority of the show sees Hannibal living in wintry Baltimore, with occasional visits to equally wintry Minnesota. We should probably double-check before we make our next dinner reservation. And with the majority of filming taking place in Toronto, Canada, a local tailor was brought in to help dial in Hannibal's signature look. Costume designer Christopher Hargadon worked with Garrison Bespoke to create three-piece suits for Hannibal, with almost all of them featuring a single-breasted jacket and a peaked lapel. For one thing, Hargadon explained that he wanted to capture a sort of refined, almost Edwardian spirit with the look of Hannibal's clothes. And the peaked lapels are meant to evoke the horns and spiky wings that are common in many portrayals of the devil. Otherwise, common themes in Hannibal's outfits include bold checks, jewel-toned shirts, and large paisley ties tied in the equally large Balthus knot, which of course is on the bold side, but it seems to work in Hannibal's own style. And of course, given that he most frequently wears cutaway collars, the harmony between tie knot and shirt collar is still maintained. While these elements are the instantly recognizable ones for this iteration of the character, the overall trait that's most consistent here is Hannibal's dedication to looking good no matter what he's doing. And although we wouldn't really advocate for cooking in a full suit, as there might be splatters, we could at least see the merit of removing the jacket so that your waistcoat keeps your tie neatly in place. If there's one thing to take away from Hannibal here then, it's to indulge in those things that make you look and feel great. Just not the whole eating people thing. By the way, if you want an even deeper dive on the style of the Hannibal television show, you can find our full article on the subject here. Moving on to someone else whom we think would probably be a welcome guest at Hannibal's dinner table, it's the Prince of Darkness himself, Count Dracula. Physical appearance and attraction have been a big part of vampire lore for centuries, with the many interpretations of Dracula emphasizing his gaze and how he's able to draw people in through both it and his refined wardrobe. And while many notable actors have cut their teeth in the role, one stands apart for his dedication to refined dressing, Bela Lugosi. Starring in the 1931 film simply entitled Dracula, Lugosi's performance is, for many people, the quintessential one when it comes to this character. And while that's true for us here at the Gentleman's Gazette too, he's also the quintessential example of a well-assembled white tie ensemble. As formal evening wear was far more common in 1931, and indeed in the late 19th century when the original novel was set, it is appropriate to see Dracula in these kinds of clothes. After all, he's trying to portray himself as a noble count and a member of elite society, so appearing in white tie is only natural here. Also, his day wear looks like this, which is a bit too boxy for our tastes. Indeed, the white tie outfit here isn't really too different from what you'd expect to see in a traditional interpretation of this dress code, and if you'd like to learn more about it, you can check out this video. And for a comprehensive dive into all things white tie, you really can't beat our white tie guide, part of our overall black tie guide, on our website. The main element that really elevates Dracula's outfit to impressive levels of villainy, then, is his long evening cloak. And, more than just being a beautifully dramatic piece for those children of the night, an evening cloak is a perfectly appropriate piece of outerwear for a formal white tie ensemble. In addition to being accurate for the time period, though, Dracula's cloak is also iconic because of the specific way in which he wears it. As you can see, a single collar without a lapel is a typical style for an evening cloak, but it's Dracula's decision to wear the collar turned up that gives him that essential air of mystery. And while it's definitely less common for you to see evening cloaks these days, they can still be a good addition to a white tie ensemble if you're pulling them off confidently. It will give you an imposing silhouette that's also going to radiate power and intrigue. Just remember that flipping your collar up is going to create that unmistakably vampiric link. Be sure to give us fangs for that tip in the comments below. From one bloodsucker to another, we now come to the 1980s, and it of course was a period of excess, corruption, and greed. very well represented by our next pick, Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. One of the more controversial novels published in recent decades, Bret Easton Ellis's work was adapted for the big screen in the year 2000. And of course, the lead role of Patrick Bateman was taken on by none other than Christian Bale. As a bored, overly wealthy member of a prestigious Wall Street firm, Bateman epitomizes the phrase, "more money than sense." And while his homicidal tendencies are ambiguous, his desire for designer certainly isn't. Both the novel and the film feature a series of exacting references to the specific brands that different characters are wearing. There are examples of Valentino Couture and Rolex watches, as well as a rather unorthodox use of a Jean-Paul Gaultier bag. And while we can't necessarily get on board with Bateman's snobbish attitude toward brands, when you compare him to another icon of 1980s excess, Gordon Gekko, we would argue that Bateman's style is actually one to pay closer attention to when it comes to real-life outfit inspiration. Although both of these men conform to the yuppie style made famous by Wall Street, American Psycho's costume designer Isis Mussenden dresses Bateman in a slightly more subdued manner than that in which we see Gekko. Both of these guys are meant to be larger-than-life characters, of course, but if you're looking for everyday inspiration, we would still recommend that you turn to the more elegant and subdued styles of Patrick Bateman. I would do so every time, and I admit that might just be because I think he's got good taste in overcoats. Another element of American Psycho that we appreciate is Bateman's devotion to personal grooming. In the famous morning routine scene, of course, he gives us an extensive rundown of his health and hygiene regimen. We wouldn't recommend that you follow Bateman's routine exactly, of course, as it was meant to border on the obsessive. However, we think you can take away the overall mood or feeling of it, which is just to prioritize your grooming. After all, good hygiene will help you and your clothes to stay looking good for longer. Isn't that right, Patrick? Finally on today's list, we come to someone who knows how to put together a great look with some killer accessories. Literally. Indeed, the 1963 James Bond film From Russia with Love marks the character of Donald "Red" Grant as a stylish spy killer. In contrast to the other characters we've looked at today, Red Grant doesn't actually take up a whole lot of screen time. Instead, he acts very much like the shark in Jaws, an occasionally seen antagonist that menaces our hero from the shadows. I'm sure I could make a few jokes about wearing a sharkskin suit at this point, but I don't really have the appetite for them right now. What this means then is that we don't see Grant wearing a wide selection of outfits, and indeed there's a striking similarity between his two main ones. On the surface, they may look like the same ensemble, but they are in fact two different getups. The similarity comes from the fact that they're both two-piece suits with gray tones, worn with spread-collar dress shirts and slim but not skinny neckties. And despite the slight differences in the details, both are great examples of 1960s suiting. And he has good reason to wear them. The story requires that Grant get close to James Bond to intercept and assassinate him. And just how can he get close to Bond and gain his trust? Well, one way is by studying the clothes he wears and then imitating them. By selecting suits, shirts, and other accessories that mirror Bond's own, Grant is able to lure Bond into a false sense of security. Bond truly believes at first that Grant is his MI6 contact just based on his appearance, which is a pretty sinister trick if you ask us. And while his outfits are great examples of mid-century style, it's his accessories that really set him apart. Of course, we'd be remiss not to mention his signature weapon of choice, the piano wire watch. Although we first see the nefarious timepiece being put to good use in a practical but uninspiring all-black ensemble, it's also seen again at multiple other points in the film, most notably during scenes set aboard the Orient Express. And right next to Grant's watch is another accessory that becomes equally as nefarious as Dracula's cape when paired with a steely gaze: his gloves. The gloves themselves are finished in what appears to be a dark gray suede leather with contrasting leather palms. They're used to great effect in the film, as whenever we see Grant slip them on, it's a sign that he's up to no good, and whenever he's taking them off, that's the sign of a job well done. I guess villains don't get gold sticker charts. Of course, gloves themselves aren't an inherently sinister item of clothing, but they're made so here by the fact that they're being worn without any other kind of outerwear, suggesting that they're not being worn for warmth. This look is something that's often seen in other parts of pop culture to denote a character with killer instincts, such as in the popular Hitman video game series. Of course, history shows us that far more men have worn gloves as part of their everyday attire without dubious intent. And it's a style that we here at the Gentleman's Gazette really enjoy too, with the best way to distance yourself from looking suspicious being to put together a harmonious outfit. By this we simply mean choosing a pair of gloves that work well with the colors featured throughout your outfit, rather than matching the main colors exactly like Grant's do. When all is said and done, you'll look incredibly stylish as you go about your day, and unlike Red Grant, you won't need unsavory excuses to revel in your sartorial splendor. So, there's our list of some of our favorite evildoers and their unique takes on different elements of classic menswear. Of course, there are many other examples we could mention. Batman's Rogues Gallery alone, for instance, is filled with stylish villains. On that note, then, we're curious as to which villains you think we should add to a future list. Just let us know in the comments below. For today, though, I should get going as I'm having some people for dinner. In today's video, I'm wearing an outfit that is somewhat inspired by those of Hannibal from the TV series we listed today. My jacket features a somewhat bold checked pattern, and it's in various tones of blue. I'm wearing it over a plain white shirt, but one that has an extreme spread collar, and I've paired that with a bold paisley tie in red tones with a fairly large tie knot. My trousers are plain charcoal gray, serving to ground the outfit somewhat, and my shoes are split-toe style single monk straps in burgundy brownish colors from TLB Mallorca. The warm tones of the shoes are also harmonized by the tie, and the silver buckles are complemented by my silver wedding band. Similarly, my vintage silk pocket square is in bluish white and burgundy tones, and rounding out the outfit are my shadow-striped socks from Fort Belvedere in navy blue and royal blue. And of course, you can find the socks I'm wearing in today's video, as well as a wide array of other classic men's accessories, by visiting the Fort Belvedere shop here.